All right, it is now 2 p.m. Welcome to the Office of Educator Effectiveness and Leadership Development, November 4th, 2020, virtual office hours. We are so glad you can make it. I am Faye Colley, one of the Education Associates. I am joined today by our awesome effectiveness team members, Rodney Evans, Beverly Flythe, Dr. Julie Hartwell, Dr. Kimberly Howard, and also joined by our effectiveness team leader and PADEP coordinator, Dr. Vicky Traufler. Momentarily, very courageous and fearless director, Lila Tolman Sagar, will be joining us as well. If you're just now joining us, please introduce yourself by typing in your name and district in the chat box. And if you haven't had the opportunity to respond yet, please type in the chat your response to our two questions. Our reflection questions are, what's working well to support teachers with virtual or hybrid instruction? And the second one is what's working well to support principals and evaluators. So I'll give you some time to respond to that. And hello again to those that are just now joining us. I see Danny's here, Abby, Shannon, and we have Mr. Zimmerman and Alicia. As a gentle reminder to eliminate background noise during this webinar, please make sure to have your microphone on mute. And again, throughout the webinar, you are welcome to type in the chat if you have questions or something to share. Mr. Rodney Evans will be our chat person for today. He will be monitoring your questions and responding accordingly. We will also have time at the end of office hours to address your questions. And I just want to circle back with some of the responses so far. People have responded that communication is key in responding to questions 1 and 2. People have already shared some strategies. I encourage you later on to scroll back in the chat and read what others are doing. They're providing different kinds of support, not just for the students' academic needs, but also mental and emotional needs. Other districts are also strategic about the support they give for annual teachers. So please type in your responses. We're learning from each other what we can do to help our students and our educators. And thank you for the feedback that's so far about the skipping, and the resources we've given you have been very helpful to you all. Okay, so we are going to move on and look at our agenda. Okay, so please take a moment. We've just done our welcome and reflections. We'll then look at the ADEPT and PADEPT calendar, special areas orientation resources, effective virtual instruction. We'll have FAQs, and then we'll have our group discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to transfer the mic over to Dr. Julie Hartwell.
Thank you so much, Faye. Welcome, everybody. So we'd like to begin with just a few reminders regarding the ADEPT process. We know that you are aware of most of this, but as you know, school calendars are different and options for flexibility are available. So we want to highlight what you should be cognizant of at this time in the school year. So first, please make sure that you're keeping your eye on the completion of preliminary cycle POP cycles, okay? Regardless of the flexibility options, the requirement for a full POP cycle in the preliminary cycle is still in place. We also bring this up because it's November, and the status bubbles in SC Lead, if you're using it to manage the overall process, should start to fill in for most of your teachers real soon. So we just want to remind you to keep your eye on that. Also, please make sure that you are conducting SCTS 3-day evaluator trainings locally for any late hires you want to serve as evaluators, or any new folks you want to serve as evaluators for classroom-based teachers. The next 3-day training conducted by the state, this office, will be January 19 through the 21st of 2021, but you don't have to wait until then if you need evaluators in your district. Each of you have trained trainers in your district who are certified to conduct this 3-day training. If you're uncomfortable for going it alone, if this is your first time doing it by yourself as your district, we want to encourage you to perhaps partner with a neighboring district or perhaps work with your consortia to schedule a regional training, but just recognize you don't have to wait on that January training to get folks trained up in your district. We also want to remind those who have completed the special areas train the trainer training to ensure that all of your special area evaluators are set up in Moodle to complete the self-paced evaluator trainings. You want to make sure you have enough evaluators, enough special area evaluators trained for each special area, because remember, special areas is now modeled after teacher evaluation. So there's a structured process at each contract level you have to go through. And that was done to ensure that different practitioner needs are met at each contract level. So you want to make sure you have enough people trained to get induction, annual, and continuing contract special area practitioners through the evaluation process beginning in August of 2021. So we're starting statewide outside of those pilot districts in August 2021. So you don't want to wait until the summer to get prepped up and ready to go. We want to encourage you to start doing some of that planning for some of that work now. As always, please make sure that when you get new hires on board that you are exposing them to the functions you're using in SC Lead. We also want to remind you to keep your ADEPT plan dates in front of you. We know if some of you have submitted changes, if you have changes going forward and you need to make some revisions to your timeline, please make sure that you communicate that to your ADEPT contact. Some of you have already passed that date for the initial SLO conference, and the date for all of your observations to be completed for most of you is December, early January. So we're in November, okay? If you look at the evaluations page in SC Lead for your district and you don't see those OBS, that's the observation status bubble, start to partially fill in for most of your teachers, especially those on summative and formative evaluations, we encourage you to kind of take a look at the status of observation completion at those particular schools. To help keep you on track beyond checking the status bubbles, remember you can also pull the reports. Take a look at the staff evaluation observations report that is specific to classroom-based teachers and how the report is going in terms of what has been completed and who has signed the observation forms. Finally, as your last ADEPT reminder here, please make sure that you are double checking your teams for Induction 1 and annual formative contract teachers. Those teams require a certified mentor. If you have one that's operating, but they're not added to the team in SC Lead, if you're using SC Lead to manage your process, you're not going to be able to close out at the end of the year. So it just makes sense to go ahead and take a look at that now before you get too far along. So those are some of our ADEPT reminders. And now I am going to turn it over to Vicki Troffler, who is going to walk us through some PADEPT reminders. Vicki?
Thank you, Dr. Hartwell. Good afternoon, everyone. I do see some of our PADEPT folks out there. So I wanted just to give you some reminders at this time in the school year. For our DAs, just make sure that all your PADEPT evaluations have been set up for all of your principals or directors of our special schools. Also check to make sure that the principal's professional development plans have those orientation signatures from the principals and their evaluators. You also want to make sure that the orientation conference pages have been held and are signed by the principals and the evaluators. And then during that conference, you want to just encourage your evaluators to communicate some tentative dates for the mid-year conferences, because that really helps the principals kind of gauge their timeline to ensure that they have adequate time to gather the feedback that they need and the evidence that they need for exemplary performance. There is no state deadline for those mid-year conferences, but we do recommend holding these conferences, especially this year, by about February. And that's to really just ensure that we have continued professional growth during the second semester based on that meaningful feedback that the evaluators will share with the principals during that mid-year conference. So again, there's no state deadline for that conference, but we just want to gauge it so that the principals have the benefit of time on their side. And I'm here if you need me to reach out to me in any way. If you have any questions about PDEPT or about SC Lead for the PDEPT process. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Beverly Flife.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will now take a brief moment to discuss the ADEPT 2020 for Special Areas orientation resources that are now available to you. The link will be dropped in the chat box, and it'll also be in these slides once they've been sent to you. As we move forward with implementation of the ADEPT 2020 for special areas, you'll be required to orient your special areas educators to the new evaluation model. By clicking the link in the chat box or by locating them on our website, you'll have access to the district orientation slides for each special area. Each district orientation explains the required components of the evaluations, addresses the changes from ADEPT 2006 or SAFE-T, deep dives into each of the rubrics, and takes the participants through the process and the required artifacts for each contract level. These orientations links in the chat box or by locating them on the OEELD webpage. We will also place the links in the November effectiveness newsletter. In the meantime, should you have any questions, please reach out to me at bflife@ed.sc.gov as your team contact for special areas. Someone else asked earlier about the dates for the spring round of trainer training, and we will announce those soon. And we hope to begin in late January. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, and I will be in the chat box if anybody needs me.
Yeah, we have one question. Melanie Cohen wants to know, how long does the training take? If someone can answer that.
I didn't time it. It's about 45 to 50 slides. So plus you'll need to deep dive. So a couple hours at least, I would think. Vicki, do you have a different opinion?
Well, I was just going to say too, this is just a resource because a lot of our folks have asked for it. You can follow it however you need to. You can tailor it to your needs. It's almost like a template that you can just manipulate however you need to. You may have all of your school counselors in one session, your speech language pathologist and therapist in another session. You might have all of your induction folks together, all of your annual folks together, all your continuing folks together. So use the slides however you want to and need to based on your audience. We included a lot of different things in there in case you wanted it, but it's not the requirement that you use every slide. Before the PowerPoint actually begins, we listed all those required components of the orientation. So I think those will be really helpful to you, even if you give them out as handouts for your participants. But as far as the PowerPoint itself, it can go as quickly or as long as you need for it to. It's not a full day training, in my opinion. But you might want to stop and discuss and have, have them do partner activities in between slides. So you're really the driver of the training, and we just have provided the skeletal PowerPoint for your resource. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Yeah.
And the orientation, to clarify something that someone put in the chat, the orientations are not the same as the evaluator trainings in Moodle. They are two different resources.
Yeah, these district orientation PowerPoints are geared toward the practitioners, okay? The folks who are being evaluated.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Let's talk virtual instruction. At HR Roundtable last week, we were able to gather some feedback from our Chief Human Resource Officers on the simplified SLO, on the transition to the new special areas evaluation, and on our Micro-Credential Academy this winter. Rodney just posted a link in our chat, and we want you all to use this link to provide us some feedback in regards to these and in regards to the things that we'll be showing you on these next few slides. So with so many different levels and delivery models for instruction this year, supervising, coaching, and evaluating teaching is going to be more complex. We are here to help. We hear from teachers, principals, and coaches how essential it is to be mindful about structure and infrastructure, including scheduling, purposeful collaboration, technology, instructional practices, personalization for schools, educators, and students. So just keeping all four of these areas in mind and not just the instructional practices as you support your teachers can be really helpful. So like I said, that survey link will just allow you to give us more feedback about the supports that you need surrounding these areas. Okay. So you see here a list of resources just to kind of support with that virtual instruction and just implementing effective instruction virtually. So the links include an interview with the instructional leaders specific to coaching and evaluating virtually. We have NIET's virtual learning playbook and remote learning website, a workshop for instructional leaders created by OEE. We have the department's remote learning resources and a link to join the Office of Personalized Learning's Personalized SC Community, which is a network where teachers are sharing high quality resources with other teachers. So if you need support in addition to that, just don't hesitate to contact your adept lead, or you can always contact Lila. Any of us will definitely be here to help and support with that. Okay. And in addition, EELD is also excited to offer a preview of a support that we will offer next semester. It'll be for teachers, principals, and other district and school instructional leaders. We'll send out information later in November about an opportunity to build on the NIET instruction and coaching training to earn micro-credentials in the areas of virtual instruction and coaching, equity and culturally competent instruction, and collective leadership. 3 areas of teaching and leadership that we've seen as even more important in 2020. So just feel free to indicate your interest or give feedback on how this opportunity could be useful for you when you're completing that. So just let us know in that what we can do as far as this goes to help serve your needs. Okay. So if there are any questions in regards to that information I just shared, please just post those questions in the chat for us. But again, please make sure you're using that survey so that you can give us that feedback that we need to better serve you. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Faye to address some of the frequently asked questions we've been receiving.
Thanks so much, Dr. Howard. And again, as promised, we will circle back on some questions. We have time for that at the end of our virtual office hours. So for your first frequently asked question, how do I upload mentor credentials for you district trained mentors? So we shared some quick steps in our October 2020 effectiveness newsletter, but want to give you a visual. So what you want to do first is click on create new training coming from, sorry, let me back that up. From the teal menu, you will see the training tab on the top. Click on that. Once you're on that page, as highlighted on this screenshot, you want to click on create new training. A form will pop up, which is showing here on the screen on the right. You want to fill this form as much as possible. And as some specific ways to fill this is for your type, choose mentor training, since it's a mentor training you're conducting, status, approved, sponsor, district, and you may leave the code blank. Also, as a note, if you're conducting virtual mentor training, you can put virtual for the location, but make sure that you're following the guidelines given by Sarah with regards to holding virtual mentor training. Also for the status, if you want to put that to reflect exactly where you are, such as in progress, that's perfectly fine. But know that we are not going to go back to what you enter and change the status to approved. It is deemed approved as long as the person that's conducting the training is a trained mentor trainer. Okay, so now going back to this form, you will see at the bottom by schedule is a spot where you could add dates. So click that twice so you can enter both dates of your training and give a duration of 6 hours for each day. And then on the lower right, you can click on save to save all the entries that you have made. This slide just shows the next steps after you save it. On the left, you will see the screen pop up with the event details. If for some reason you didn't have all the information, such as the name of the trainer or the CID of the trainer, you can edit it and make sure to enter it here on this page where it says event details. You will see at the bottom of that page, there is view attendees. You want to click on that and it will take you to this screenshot on the right, the top one, wherein you have the option to add your attendees by typing in their names or putting in their CIDs. I highly suggest to please use the CIDs. If you have it already in a spreadsheet, just copy and paste in that box so that it will match to the person that really deserves to get the mentor credential. Sometimes educators have the same name, so you don't want to accidentally give credit for mentor training for somebody that did not attend your training. So after just entering those CIDs, click search, and then you will be asked to fill in who passed or who completed. You have to check each and every one. And then once you have checked those, you will see when you go to award credentials, it will populate a list of educators that the credentials have been awarded to. And thank you, Lila, for adding that. That is the same feature for doing entries for your SETS training. It will help with connecting with other districts if they're trying to locate a training nearby to send their educators to. But of course, the big difference is even though you enter your SETS trained participants in SELead.org, they don't automatically get evaluator credential. They have to take the test in the NIET ADEPT portal. All right, moving on. Our next question is, I have educators from another district. How can they update their email addresses? So there are two ways to update it. For those that remember their username and password, it's step one. You can just ask them to use to log in with the username and password that they remember, and then they can change their own email address. So they will log in, and on the upper right of the screen, they will see an option for account. That is where they will make the change to their email address. And if they wanted to change their username and password, they can change it once they enter SELead. Now, for those that have forgotten their usernames and password, the user needs to contact support at SELead.org and provide the name and either date of birth or CID for account verification. So for step two, please remember, we emphasize that it's the educator that needs to reach support at SELead.org. That is a request by our partner, Randa, for security purposes. Some educators may not want their emails changed to a district email, so we want to make sure it's their choice and their decision to change their email addresses in their SELead user account. All right. So now this question, what should I do if I have educators listed twice under evaluated staff list? It's a tough situation to have to encounter this question, but just a big reminder, number one, only create an evaluation under the staff list if the educator's profile has a CID, so the record will transfer to the certification portal. Okay, never create the evaluation record if the staff listing does not have an associated CID. So if you created an evaluation record and entered the evaluation data under the educator's profile without a CID, make sure to enter what you have there to the evaluation record that you create under the one with the CID so that you don't lose any data. And then step 3, you may now then go back and remove any evaluation record from the educator profile without CID. And to do that, you locate the evaluation record, you go to the settings, scroll down and click remove. And then lastly, you want to go to the staff listing. So you edit the staff details of the educator without CID. You want to change that to no role and not evaluated. Or if there's a delete option, then go ahead and delete that staff member from the staff list. Note that the evaluations created under a profile cannot be transferred to or merged with another profile, even if they show the same name. So again, if you create an evaluation record under the educator with no CID, SELead can't just move that to the profile of the educator with a CID. So this is why we're giving you these steps. Also, if your educator, now needs to access the evaluation associated to their profile with a CID, they don't need to re-register. All they have to do is contact support@SELead.org and let them know that they need their user account to be associated to their profile with a CID, and SELead can do that. They can transfer the user account and attach it to the correct profile. Thank you for that feedback, Emily. All right, so for the next one, which is our last FAQ, what report can I use to track both SLO and goals progress? And I see that Bethany's here today, and we actually talked about this, and I spoke to another district contact that was asking this as well. So that kind of confirms that, hey, some people need this guidance. So we suggest that you use the evaluation status ADEPT district report. So part of it looks like this. So you will see that there are columns for SLO progress and for goals progress. You can look at columns K, L, and M for classroom-based teachers you assigned an SLO, and columns N and O for those who are special areas educators who entered goals. So at this point, based on your district ADEPT timelines, there is likely progress under preliminary or columns K and N. But please note that you should not necessarily panic when you see N under these columns. For example, for any classroom educator that you allowed to skip SLO, the mark will stay as N. So make sure you note somewhere else that you have skipped an educator's SLO, and not worry if it's showing an N under K, L, or M. And then most classroom-based teachers are likely not required an additional goals. So you might see the N's under goals N and O for a classroom-based teacher. But if you assigned a goal on top of their SLO, then again, make sure to note that so you know when you're supposed to be seeing a Y under their goals as well. And then for special areas educator, they are most likely just assigned the goals and not the SLO. So you would commonly see N, K in N, so you would commonly see in K, L, and M that those would be an N for your special areas educators. Okay. All right, I see Danny has a request here. Thanks for that feedback. So we will move forward with discussions and questions shortly. We'll circle again to those questions that were in the chat. But for now, we actually have a question that we want to pose to you. And at the same time, we want to share with you a new strategy that we learned from a professional learning called Distance Learning Playbook that we attended, Dr. Hartwell and I attended, that was put together by the Office of Career and Technical Education with the Department of Education. So here's the new strategy that we want to share with you that maybe you can share with your educators. It's called Waterfall. I will pose a question and you will not hit enter when you respond to the question. So I will give you time to respond and type your response in the chat box, but you will wait until I count down 3, 2, 1 and say go before you hit it. So it's called waterfall because it will trickle down as if cascading water. So that is the essence of the strategy. If you have a thumbs up feature, or raise your hand feature, can you just quickly respond to make sure that I actually relayed the instructions well? I'm going to pose a question. You're going to respond in the chat, but do not click enter, and you will click enter when I say go. Is that clear enough for instructions? And I'm going to give you my virtual wait time because we also want to model that. If I could see maybe just a Y in the chat box, if the directions are clear. Thanks to our wonderful director for responding. I see now responses are coming in. All right, so the directions are clear. Thank you. I see those many responses coming in. Okay. So here is our question. Okay, and this ties to one of the questions that were posted earlier about are we having virtual training? So our question is, okay, and Dr. Hartwell, please help me or Rodney drop this question in the chat. Should OEELD continue to offer training in spring 2021 using a virtual platform? 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 mix of face-to-face and virtual, and 4 undecided. So your response to this will help us, plan for our spring 2021 trainings. And don't hit enter yet. Oh. Well, it did kind of look like a waterfall. So, and I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, go. For those that haven't entered it yet. There you go. So there's that waterfall effect. So it just rolls really fast by just holding off into clicking the enter. I know it's hard because I know when we did it for our virtual training, I also hit enter the first time that we did the waterfall, just out of habit, responding and entering responses before the answer disappears and goes out of my brain. So thank you for your participation and that nice smile, Danny. I will now ask Rodney to share with us the things that have been asked in the chat. Maybe we've responded to them, but others may need to hear the response and it may be beneficial to them. And some other questions that maybe we didn't get the opportunity to respond to yet. So take it away, Rodney.
Okay. I'm trying to see if there are any questions. I believe we addressed most of them. Let's see here. I'm going to address one. Someone is asking about the link to the Moodle training, so you can create your own account. That is available to those who attended the special area trainer training this year. So you would have received access to the Google link that you were sent. If you need access to that again, you can email Beverly Flythe. But again, you would have had to have attended the special area trainer training this year. Let's see what else. Let's see what else here. I have a question on, somebody has a question on induction walk. Sherry, what is your question on induction walkthroughs.
Okay, are you able to hear me, Rodney?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clearly.
Okay, I know I emailed you about this, but since I'm not the one entering them,
Mhm.
we have a school with a lot of induction teachers, and they were wondering, since the guidance was that the walkthroughs would focus on a small number of indicators, why would they have to enter all of the other data in the walkthrough? And then I was just thinking, does it allow them to just enter the rubric score for the one or two things that they were observing and scripting on in the walkthrough without having to fill in all the rest? Does it allow them to complete that record so that the educator can do the self-reflection? Or I don't quite understand how that works.
All right, and I can get some help from some of my colleagues. But my interpretation is that they would still complete all of the spaces where they have to give a score for those indicators in the walkthrough.
Okay.
I mean, if someone else has a
Rodney,
different,
So all of the indicators don't have to be completed for a walkthrough.
okay,
For a walkthrough, they can just select specific indicators.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So because I'm not the one entering those in, I wasn't aware of that, because if it's a regular observation, you've got to enter them all in. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Sherry, they can still sign it. It will not be a part of what the system is looking for to complete, quote unquote, at the end of the year. It will also not give them any kind of calculation score like you would if you were doing an observation record, where you could see the average, when you can see the overall score change as observations are signed and completed on the results page. But they will be able to capture area of reinforcement and refinement, the teacher self-reflection, and the score for, let's just say, if they wanted to do problem solving and teacher content knowledge. As Dr. Howard said, they could just mark those two, do the area of reinforcement and refinement if they chose to do that also, and sign it if they chose to do that. That would be, that would be enough.
and
Okay,
Patricia,
so I see
go ahead, Sherry.
one comment that someone saying that they're not allowed to sign it unless they're all filled in. Is that?
Well, I was going to ask Patricia, are you referring to the walkthrough or the observation?
It is true for the observation. The walkthrough, you should be able to just do a couple of them, one particular domain, several indicators within a domain, and be able to sign it. But we can double check that. Patricia, I'll double check it and I'll get back with everybody.
Okay, I think just got clarification, said it allows for just one. What I guess, could someone elaborate on that? It allows for just one indicator to be selected. Is that what we're saying here?
I don't think anything's required on the walkthrough form.
Gotcha.
And you can just sign it, but we'll double check in SC Lead right now.
Thank you.
All right.
Melissa, I think part of what you have here in the chat, when we submit walkthrough documentation, it states the observation hasn't been started, and that's correct, because it doesn't. The system is not looking for walkthroughs when it considers your status bubbles or your donut percent completion. Okay, it is only looking for the walkthroughs, the SLOs, if they're doing a professional goal, the professionalism domain, things like that. It's not calculating the walkthrough in that percent of, hey, I'm this far towards being completed. So it really does depend on the language you're using. I'm sorry, Dr.
Yeah,
Hart.
I was just going to add to what you were saying, Julie. We have put these provisions in place that allow for that flexibility, but like Julie mentioned,
please.
That doesn't necessarily impact that particular bubble, because that bubble isn't looking for a walkthrough. It's looking for an observation.
All right, Janet. Janet had a question. Janet Moore said, if a teacher is up for recertification evaluation but does not instruct students, do they complete the professional growth instead of the PG instead of the formative formal evaluation. And yes, Janet, that is correct.
All right. I'm sorry, for some reason I can't see the hands up earlier, but Lila shared that there were a few hands up earlier. And Lou, do you have a question, or that was just with the engagement earlier when I was asking if the directions were clear for the waterfall? Okay, thank you for clarifying. That's for engagement. And how about Bethany? Was that for the engagement portion earlier?
Yes,
Okay.
it was.
Awesome. And Melissa? All right, thank you for clarifying that. And that reminds me to make sure to request to have your hands put down after I've asked a question and after you've responded. So thank you for that. Dr. Hartwell, I think earlier there was a question that was in line to your slide about the OBS, and it might be helpful in case the others missed out on that. I think Rodney did respond to it, something to do with the bubbles filling in for OBS.
For walkthroughs, someone asked if would you have to monitor the bubbles for the walkthroughs, and once the that walkthrough is created, the shade, I think it's, yeah, that bubble starts to shade in.
Well, I think that's a great question, whether or not it shades in based on a walkthrough. And it's been my experience that it does not, because remember, the bubble is for the required components of the observation. The walkthrough is not, quote unquote, the required part of that pop cycle. So it is not looking for a walkthrough in the bubble or the donut or the percent. So you would have walkthroughs listed under the on your observations page, showing that it was indeed a walkthrough, but it's not going to be the scores aren't going to be calculated. It's not going to change the overall status calculation on the results page. It's not going to move your bubble. It's not going to move your donut. We are going to do a little testing. I apologize. I'm driving the slides today.
I'm testing it out now.
Okay,
that's
okay.
correct.
Thank you, Ron.
It doesn't. Not for the walkthrough.
Not for the walkthrough. And can you sign? Can you double check the signature part where if you just have a couple of indicators marked, not the whole thing,
Hold on.
should you be able to sign it?
I'm checking that one, Julie. My text didn't go through to y'all, so I'll check that one, Rodney, and you can keep answering.
Okay.
Thank you, Lila. So, but yeah, the walkthroughs are not going to move your bubbles, your donuts, or anything of the such.
Thank you, Dr. Hartwell and Lila and Rodney for testing right at this moment. And we appreciate your questions because some of these we're thinking are working the way they're supposed to work, but unless we hear, then we don't realize that it's not really working as we had intended. So Patricia, thanks for sharing earlier about, it's not really allowing you to have it signed if the indicators are not all filled in the walkthrough. So piggybacking on Sherry's question earlier. So now we're really hearing what you guys are going through.
Larry has a question
Yes.
in the chat box. Says,
yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rodney.
Oh, no, I was just going to read the question and then address it. I'll see if we can address it together. So was this question answered? Said when we submit walkthrough documentation, it states the observation hasn't been started.
And yes, that is technically correct because a walkthrough is not an observation. They are tagged differently. If you start an observation, you have not started, if you start a walkthrough, you have not started an observation. So if you do the walkthrough prior to, like for an induction teacher, if you're doing a walkthrough for that teacher now, it will tell you the observation hasn't been started, because what you've entered data for is the walkthrough and not the technical observation. So until you begin an observation, so if you're waiting until the final cycle to do that observation for the induction teacher, it will not say anything about observation until you have created a full-fledged righteous observation. Otherwise, if it's a walkthrough, it's not going to say that it was quote unquote started. So it really is about the term and how the system tags walkthroughs versus tagging observations in terms of completion and in terms of how it calculates.
Thank you,
Larry.
Dr. Hartwell.
And so I'm sorry, Faye. So
Keep
Larry,
going.
I will double check with Randa that maybe we need to alter the message, the error message or the alert message. So that is a great point to make. And thank you if I didn't understand that that was what our colleague had asked earlier. But I will check on the message, because perhaps that is, we need to update that particular message. But recognize the system reads observations and walkthroughs separately.
Also, Larry, that may be tied to your earlier question today, and I did check with Randa. One of the things when you create a walkthrough, and if there's no data entered in it, it's gonna say, not completed. Make sure to enter the dates in that the pre-conference was held, if that helps. And we can also go and check, and do a lot of testing with all these questions that you have brought up to us. Okay, thank you, Larry, letting us know that after the data is entered, that that still shows up. That ties into what Dr. Hartwell, I think, was explaining earlier, and we'll look more into it. So thank you for sharing. Danny, you have a question? Please hop on the mic.
Good afternoon, y'all. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
It's good to hear from y'all. I think I tracked most of that conversation about the walkthrough and observations and all that. And it's been working fine for us. The walkthrough, it's been fine as long as they complete it, and it's been fine. Did y'all make an adjustment? And maybe you said this and I just missed it, where it seems like if they accidentally put an observation in for the induction, that the educator, I had one example where the educator couldn't see it. And I was thinking that maybe that was intentional. Am I understanding that correctly? Did I ask that correctly?
I'm not certain, Danny, if I followed everything you said, but the scores don't show up for the educator until the evaluator, the observer, has signed the form. So even if the observer can see the scores, until they sign it, it doesn't become visible to the educator. I think that's my recollection of that sequence of events. So I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if I understand that sequence that way, because it would be pre-signature, but they would put in their self-reflection, and if it needs to be started in order for them to put in the self-reflection. And I guess what I was asking was, I had at least one example. I've been kind of watching them pretty carefully. We had one example where an observation was done instead of the walkthrough, but then the teacher couldn't see the observation to even put in a self-reflection. And I was just wondering if that was something that Randa did to kind of sort of maybe redirect those induction ones back to the walkthrough. And if that's not the case, that's fine. We're still trying to manage that. I'm using those reports to watch for those. I run it like once a week.
Yeah, and I appreciate your question, because I know you're in the weeds and working with, kind of understanding how the system works. But let me separate one thing. It doesn't matter about the scores being in or the observer signing before the teacher sees the quote unquote walkthrough. What has to happen is that the evaluator clicks that button that says release self-reflection or allows self-reflection.
Yeah,
Allows the teacher.
but also I thought it was automatic now. Is the self-reflection not automatic on walkthroughs? It was automatic if it was past the date.
Correct. We did make one correction, something similar to that, but I don't think that, I'll have to check about the walkthrough. You bring up a great question. If it's past the date, does the self-reflection automatically populate similar to the observation? Right. That's your question, right? Okay.
And that was not my original question, but I guess, and that so far hasn't been a problem for us. So I wouldn't sweat that one too much. It hadn't been a problem to my knowledge. But yeah, it's just trying to manage that. I almost kind of wish, I understand we're using it as a walkthrough. I almost kind of wish it had a different name, like modified observation or something. But I understand that, with the flexibility, it is what it is.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. We got that. I read your comment earlier in the text about maybe the name could be different. Yeah, but we're not going to be here forever. We're not going to be in this season forever. So we're going to eventually go back to life as we knew it.
Yeah, it would be worth exploring. I do think that it might be something worth exploring for the induction model, to keep it in place, keep the fall walkthrough in place. I'm not necessarily advocating that, but it'd be worth exploring.
And that's something I debated putting on this fall survey. We usually do a winter needs survey with you guys too in December, January, and that'll definitely be a question. But I'm curious if anyone else is feeling like the walkthrough, focusing on fewer descriptors with induction teachers first semester is really working for you. I'd love to hear that. In the chat, and in the chat, if you have gone the other way and you've decided to continue to give teachers feedback on all the standards, definitely let us know. Our goal is always to make sure induction teachers are supported, so we want to make sure the system matches what supports the teachers.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Danny. And I really appreciate y'all participating because it's really a community of learners. Kathy just put in the chat something that has to do with what you shared, Danny, about the issue with self-reflection and the trick that was given by SE Lead Support by clicking on details instead of name in the evaluation. So hopefully if you try that strategy, hopefully that would work out for you too. And thank you so far for your responses to the question that Lila just posted.
If folks could continue to put their responses to Lila's question in the chat box, she really is thoughtful about y'all's feedback. So as y'all can enter comments there about whether or not that induction flexibility is working for you or not would be great. Thanks everybody for putting your feedback in the chat.
And we will give you wait time as you think through. Also, thank you for your responses earlier on how you want to see the 2020-2021 spring professional learning. Many responded. It was almost 50-50. 1 continue the virtual platform, and 3 have a mix of virtual and face-to-face. And it's sounding like some were specific that with evaluator training to be a face-to-face training. So different districts are doing different things, some similar.
All right, good stuff, Emily.
So if you have other questions, this is the time you feel free to hop on the mic. while all our friends are responding in the chat box.
I have a question on special area samples.
Go ahead, ma'am, Miss Patricia.
I was wondering if we're going to be able to get access to samples for the special areas just as we have for the SLOs. I know that I spoke or emailed Beverly, and she told me that for the counselors there is the website that they can go to. I went there, I could not find it. I guess you have to be a member. So I was trying to find a way that would be easier for them to access samples for the special areas.
Thank you for that question. I will defer to our special areas contact or other team members that may be able to respond to Patricia.
Can you clarify about what you need samples of?
Yes, for instance, the student, the SGG, for the guidance counselors, I'm working with an induction teacher, our induction counselor, and he's struggling with this because he's new to the profession. This is a new document that I'm getting used to, and I want him to have the same access to information that our classroom teachers do.
Rodney, is that something that you have been looking at too, since you do the SLOs and those samples to do the student growth goals for
I'm sorry,
counselors?
I was typing in response to Sherry. I'm sorry. What? Let me what was the question again, Vicki? I'm sorry.
They're hoping.
I think I can answer it, Vicki, if that's okay. Y'all, we're in pilot with this. No one has ever used this exact evaluation process. We based it on national models, but y'all who have gone ahead with it this year are the first to do it. So instead of creating fake samples, what we would like to do is use some of the samples from the pilot that is happening this year. So we don't necessarily, if you have, like Patricia does, an individual educator who needs some help with a form, we can definitely talk them through the form. Our advisory groups that included ed prep folks, expert counselors, librarians, speech language professionals, folks who've been doing HR and evaluation functions for a long time. Many of you were part of those. We have a good idea of what they should look like, but I'm not comfortable putting out samples this year until we get a subgroup of people who have actually used the forms. So that's something we could definitely create in the summer if it's useful. It took us a few years of having SLOs for us to be good enough writing a solid one to be able to get those up on the website. So all of those things come with time when you use an evaluation system, but we don't have them available for the folks that are piloting this year. In fact, we will be hitting you up for samples of those documents.
Thanks so much, Lila. Erin had a question. When is the next special areas trainer training? I think Beverly did respond to this, and if I'm not mistaken, we are getting ready to release that. Beverly, do you want to speak on that again regarding the special areas training?
Just that we are still scheduling those, and they will begin, I think I said towards the end of January, the next round. We are in the process of finalizing those dates now. And also we wanted to get feedback on whether they all needed to be virtual or whether we were considering doing some face-to-face.
Thanks, Beverly. I hope that answered your question for now. We will release dates once we have them, Erin.
Yeah, we have a question from Ms. Curley in Dorchester 2. Says for non-classroom based educators who are only completing a professional goal. Says I have a coordinator who is not showing the ACLE that's having the evaluator credential, or the teacher evaluator credential. Shows up in the drop-down menu to serve as the evaluator for the professional goal for our interventionists. Is it okay for this person to serve as the evaluator for these GBE only educators? I guess, team, is that possible for someone?
I'll address that, Rodney. Yes, so similar to the SLO approver, these people don't have to have that specific credential in order to be a GBE approver. They don't have to have an evaluator credential because we realize that there are experts who can serve on these teams without being an evaluator, without having that evaluator credential. So yeah, there is the option to select. And just like with the SLO, everybody in that school will come up with an option for an SLO approver. And that's the same thing with the GBE.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Dr. Howard. And Sharon, just to add, if you want those credentials to actually populate, make sure that the CID inside the NIET SE Adept portal is correct for that educator, so that if in case you want to use that educator as an evaluator under the SCTS 4.0, that person will populate. So it's usually an issue of the CID not matching.
Yes, well, thank you. I'm not sure she's ever officially had the training, so we were just checking, like she didn't show up with the credential for the new evaluation system or the credential for the old evaluation system, so we were just checking, but I understand that approver status, so I appreciate that. That's very helpful.
All right. You're welcome, and thank you. Do we have anybody else that have questions?
These are great. These are great questions. Really, really, this is a really, really productive time we're spending together. Thank y'all.
Cheryl's asking about where are we and looking at evaluations for APs in relation to the PDEP tool.
I'll take that. So at this time, we don't have an evaluation for assistant principals in SC Lead, as you know. We wanted to make sure that we were rolling out the teacher evaluation system and then PDEP and then the special areas. And then we were going to look at the assistant principals. At this time, we do have a good resource that a lot of districts are using to develop their own evaluation instrument. And I can definitely send that back out. I've sent it to the HR folks at each district, so they should have a copy of that. And basically, it is a document that has possible criteria that are related to the PDEP standards and criteria, but specifically for assistant principals. We have not really started that process yet in actually developing one for at a state level, because the assistant principal role varies so greatly from one level to the next and from one district to another. So hopefully that resource will be helpful to your district as you look to develop your own instrument until we come to that part at a state level. If you want to email me, oh good, I think Lila's dropping it in the chat so that you can take it from that link right there.
And the only other thing I'd add is we've gotten some feedback as we talk more about leader preparation and how we are preparing future principals and principals about potentially adding a flexible tool for required AP evaluations. So I'm curious, also feel free to add in the chat if y'all would want something more concrete to be required for APs. We have definitely stayed away from that because we know how different the AP role is school to school, even within a district and then district to district. But if you would like, we have heard that suggestion before that it would be nice for there to be a flexible statewide tool and a requirement for AP evaluation.
And I just wanted to say that's not a Cheryl Warren's question. That came from my superintendent. She asked me that in a staff meeting.
Thank you for that, Dr. Warren. It is now 3:04. We don't want to keep you. We know your schedule's busy, but we are here ready to continue to respond to your questions. We'll stay on for a little bit, but we also have on the next slide, of course, our contact information. So you can always reach us at your convenient time, and we will make sure to respond to you as soon as possible. But if you still have questions, we'll stay on and respond to them. And if you could respond to Lila's last question, that would also be wonderful. And just to repeat, Lila's last question was, would you like to have that AP evaluation that's flexible? Thanks, Sherry. Thanks, Rodney. Thank you for your responses, Patricia, Letitia. And thank you for the clarification, Lila, that it would have to be reported. Thank you for that feedback, Erin and Cheryl.
Yeah, okay, I'm trying to read a question here from someone. Trying to catch Lee's question. Says, if we have a new admin who's waiting on receiving her SOCON certificate, how will she be able to approve SLOs by signing an SC lead? I guess that's kind of a case by case. I guess what is the status or why that teacher? What's going on with the certification? Lee, this could be a case by case situation. But she wouldn't if she doesn't have a CID. I don't know. Can you elaborate what, or would you like to email me?
Hey, Rodney, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We have an administrator that came to us from North Carolina. I think Lila's pretty familiar with the situation, and we are waiting on her to receive her South Carolina certificate. She had to go through 4.0 training.
Okay.
And until that happens, she's not going to be able to sign off on preliminary conferences or approve SLOs and SC lead.
So we kind of need a workaround for that.
Yeah. So
yeah,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rodney.
No. I was saying I would get with you and see what would be the workaround, and I can get back with Lee.
Yeah, I think that's probably best. You can either have someone else act as the approver if you just want to get those rolling now, or have her go back and sign it when she has access to SC lead, which is fine. Keep it on paper for now. Okay. Thanks so much, guys.
And everyone, Lila has added to the chat the results of her testing. being able to put in one score for one indicator and being able to sign it. So it's working, and you can also test it. She's provided the training site. If you are an adept district level coordinator, you can go ahead and register an account at the testing site just by clicking register in the top right hand corner, and you can register your own training account. You go in and assume roles. I'm sure if you've been in training with us, you've seen us bounce around in and out of roles to kind of orient yourself to what you're going to see. But Lila has tested it, and it seems to be working. Thank you, Lila, for doing that.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hartwell. And thank you, Lila, again for dropping that in the chat. And we appreciate your appreciations. It is now 3:10. I think it's safe to say goodbye at this point. And again, our contact information is in front, showing on the slide. So please feel free to reach us. Have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Be well, everybody. And Dr. Saggers, if you're interested in AP eval, definitely reach out to us. We're happy to walk you through that document.